Good morning. Happy Wednesday. With the Stickman decision, the district court decision in Pennsylvania, where the court found that Jacobson versus Massachusetts is no longer in and of itself a sufficient basis for constitutional analysis. It was decided before we had the constitutional analysis framework in place that we use today, wherein we look at levels of scrutiny, tiers of scrutiny. You either have the rational basis, intermediate, or strict scrutiny. So with that in mind, it has gotten my noggin jogging about mask mandates. Now, prior to today, I have never ever stated that mask mandates are unconstitutional. In fact, I went the other way. I thought that they would be constitutional because of Jacobson versus Massachusetts. Now, what's the difference between a mask mandate, wherein I don't think where I do think Jacobson versus Massachusetts would apply, and a lockdown order where I don't think Jacobson versus Massachusetts would apply? Well, the difference is in your liberty. You are stuck at home. You're not allowed to leave your home except under certain circumstances. Basically, you've been deprived your freedom, all of your essential freedoms, in one big lump without due process of law. Whereas with a mask mandate, you're still able to go out and do everything you want to do, need to do. You just have to wear a mask while doing it. So that's the big distinction between those. You aren't deprived of your liberty interests as much as you are with the mask mandate. As much as you are with the lockdown order. So now that we have that Stickman decision, again, it is not really binding on anybody. It's not precedent. It's just persuasive, but it is a good indication. It's something that I didn't think of. I never suspected a district court would just say, screw Jacobson. It doesn't give the right kind of constitutional analysis that we use today. And I'll be perfectly honest with you. I haven't really studied Jacobson versus Massachusetts, but I never even noticed that it didn't have a constitutional analysis in it. Strict scrutiny, intermediate scrutiny, or rational basis. But now that that's in my head, I am cautiously optimistic that a court may find mask mandates to be unconstitutional. And my argument would be along the lines as follows. Clothes that you wear, the styles that you wear, are expressions. You are expressing yourself via the clothes that you wear or don't wear. Some people wear suits to show that they are businessmen. Some people don't wear suits. Specifically, I've seen a lot of attorneys go into court. I mean, not a lot, but I've seen attorneys go into court where they have blazers on over, blazers and linen pants. And I mean, they're still dressed up enough to appease the judges, but they're not wearing suits. These are conscious decisions that people make in how to dress themselves and how to present themselves to the world. And as humans, we judge people based on it. We look and see what they're wearing. If you see a guy coming at you in a dark alley wearing a suit, you're not going to be nearly as concerned as if you see a guy coming at you in a dark alley wearing a hoodie with sagging jeans. And it's a different thing. We interpret clothing styles as speech. And so my argument would be that mandating speech is, of course, a restriction on speech, and mandating that someone wear a mask would be a speech restriction. And so I would suggest that it would qualify for strict scrutiny. In order for the government to survive strict scrutiny, the government would have to show there's a compelling interest in making people wear masks. So they would have to show that masks are effective, that masks are actually effective at stopping the coronavirus transmission. And the government would also have to show that there is no less restrictive means of doing that, of stopping that transmission. And they'd have to show that it's a compelling interest to stop it. You know, they can't just say, oh well, 200,000 people have died ish. I mean, they're going to have to literally show that there's a compelling interest, that people's lives are on the line, and it's not just some kind of tangential thing where people who die from coronavirus have on average 2.6 comorbidities. So that is route one. Route two would be if the court rejects my argument that your clothing, choosing to wear a mask or not wear a mask, is a element of speech, is pure speech, then the next step would be to default back to the O'Brien test. If you remember, the O'Brien test is based on a guy burning a draft card. There was a law in place that made it illegal for people to destroy or mutilate their draft cards. It wasn't based on speech, but he decided to burn his draft card as speech. And so the court developed a test. It's a 4-part O'Brien test. I may not get the parts exactly right because I haven't looked at the case in a long time. But the 4 parts are, first of all, if it's the federal government, there has to be some constitutional basis for the court or for the government to make the order or law or rule, which wouldn't really apply to a state. I mean, you could look at the state's constitution to see if they have allocated that power to the correct party, but a state would have the power to make these health mandates. It would be part of the constitutional powers that are reserved to the states. The second part is that there has to be a significant or important government interest, which is the mid-level intermediate kind of scrutiny. And it has to be unrelated to free speech. It has to not be directed at free speech. And then any incidental impact or restriction on free speech has to be no more than is essential for the government to achieve that important or significant interest. But again, because the government would have to prove that there is an important or significant interest and that the mask mandate is essential to achieve it, the government would still be on the hook to prove that masks actually work, that cloth masks actually work, and they actually slow or limit the spread of the coronavirus, and etc. So that is the route I would take to show, if I got into court, that the mask mandates are unconstitutional. Again, I think the Stickman court, the Judge Stickman, did a great job in exposing the weakness of the Jacobson versus Massachusetts decision as far as our current constitutional analysis scheme. So there you go. Thanks for watching. Have a great day.